If you know the name Danny Cosby, you probably know it from singing center stage at Hope Church, Memphis, or possibly even from his outspoken love and personal journey within the recovery community. And if you don't know Danny, get excited because his passion and pastoral heart advocates for those traveling the path of recovery and addiction, as well as offers wisdom on how we can best love and care for this community. In this episode, we get a really transparent look into Danny's story, as well as what his journey reminds us when life seems to completely unravel. His challenge, don't give up. But, that challenge comes with a whole lot of work, a whole lot of advice, and a whole lot of practical takeaways you're gonna wanna write down. So let's get to it and meet Danny Cosby in the green chair. Danny Cosby.
Hey.
You're sitting with us in the green chair.
It's so cool, man. These are really cool green chairs, by the way. I really like it.
Thanks. I kind of want these in my house, actually.
Yeah, a lot of shades of green. This is probably the coolest shade.
Yeah. Thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
This is a huge honor. This is going to be really fun. Yeah. Okay, I don't even know where to start with you. I think I told you this when we were talking. I was like, you're a musician. You're an author.
Yeah.
You have a pastoral heart. And you're a huge advocate for the recovery community,
yeah.
And you have your own personal journey within that. But I guess we got to start with September, 15 years.
Yeah.
You celebrated 15 years of sobriety.
Thank you, Lord.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
That's huge.
Yeah.
So
good to be alive.
Tell us about your journey.
Yeah, wow.
Loaded question, right?
Man, yeah, let's see. We got time to order something for lunch, you know? No, I'm just really grateful to be alive. I'm grateful to be here at this point to talk to you about it. Who only God knows who's going to be next that God put in front of me to talk about it. But really, I tell people that my story is his story, or my history is his story. So it's just a journey, really. Without being too long-winded to back it up, my parents, it started with them. You know, I came from them. They came from an extremely broken home. My mom experienced homelessness for quite a while during the tail end of her high school years. My dad suffered a lot of abuse from the hand of his father, very physical and verbally abusive. Had a great mom, my Meemaw, who went home, what was it, yesterday? She's been gone 4 years. I miss her so much. She was a great mom, tried to do what she tried to do in the home to protect her children, but it's kind of hard when you got a guy that's just hell-bent on violence.
Yeah.
So my mom and dad met. They ended up going through that journey together of about a year of dating, and they were arguing a lot and going through all of the things that I guess pre-Christ folks maybe sometimes do, and then there was there had to been some kind of Jesus in the mix when they were growing up, because my dad told my mom one night, I got to get right with God. And so he goes to this little church in Fraser that later on down the road.
Just one day, randomly, he says, I got to get right with God.
Yeah, they had some big blowout fight, and for some reason, according to him now, quote unquote, he said, I got to get right with God. My mom, who, we're all smart Alex. Cosby's are smart Alex. And she said, sure, we've tried everything else. Let's try God. And so, joking with him about that, he goes to this little church that later on down the road, years later, he would end up pastoring. And really crazy story there. And he goes there, God gives the invitation. It's one of those churches. He goes down to give his life to the Lord, and mom takes off running after him. So it was like the joke, she thought the joke was about the whole thing, and the joke was on them, because God had the last laugh. So they gave their life to the Lord. They got married very shortly thereafter. I was the firstborn, then it was my sister, and then it was my brother. And so we grew up in this home. We were really poor, didn't have a lot, but had a lot of love. We never really, mom and dad hid our, for lack of better ways of describing it, poverty from us in all the love that we had. Somebody was always there. Dad worked a lot. They were very, what's the word? They didn't have a lot of tools when it came to parenting, and so they were, who does, right?
Yeah.
But they just jumped in both feet, raising us. And I got to be, fast forward, got to be about a teenager, 13, 14 years old, and I just didn't want to hear nothing Dad had to say about nothing. The church we had grown up in, where Dad preached, and then we left and went to another church after he said, I just can't do this anymore, the pressures of pastoral life. He got out of the ministry, and I got to the point where I was like, I don't want to hear anything about God. I don't want to hear anything about what you got to say to me as a parent. I'm just going to go do my own thing. Because my image of God, unfortunately, and my dad had that image, and later on down the path, it changed. But it was that he was a judge with a hammer waiting to chase you down. And so I just took off, Jessica. I went crazy. I mean, just everything you could think of, put on a page, I did it and then some. Didn't really get into drugs until about 18 years old. So at 18, from 18 years old to 25, it was kind of an accidental stumbling into drugs, a party, hanging out with friends. I was helping a guy move in the very beginning of it, and he had some pills, and we took them, and it just kind of built on, and you know, little did I know, my dad and mom both had addictive personalities, alcoholic drug addicts from their past as well, and their parents had the same issue. So it was like this generational thing that was hunting us down. And my dad and mom broke the chains of addiction on their life, but then I picked up the chains and soldered them back together at 18 and took off. And it was just a heavy progression of addiction. You know, it was had jobs, regular life, trying to pay my bills and build a life for myself, but while still balancing this addiction. And eventually the addiction won. I was about 24 years old when I took my 401k out at this sales place that I'd been working at for years, spent all the money on dope, went down this huge slide of just the depths of addiction, doing things that I said I would never do. I'm like, I'm only gonna be a pill popper, and then you wind up getting involved in snorting things and putting needles in your arm. I went all to the never places. And at 25 years old, September 18th, 2005, which is however many days ago from there, I was walking on the streets of Memphis trying to find this other homeless shelter because I'd gotten kicked out of the Union Mission. Like, how do you get kicked out of a homeless shelter, right? When I got kicked out, drugs, of course, and having them on me. And so I was like, okay, I got to find another homeless shelter to use and abuse. And wound up, taxi cab picked me up, make a long story short, he dropped me off, didn't charge me for the ride. I went in, was knocking on the door, turned around to tell him thanks. He was gone. I was like, what's going on? I mean, I remember thinking that day, something's going on, but I was like, maybe I'm just coming off of heroin or something. Long story short, went in there, guy was preaching the gospel, and I tell people that, you know, the Bible says, train up a child in the way he or she should go, and when they get old, it won't depart from them. And I think in that moment, all the seeds my dad and mom sowed in my life just started popping open. And while this dude, who probably thought, I'm in a homeless shelter again, preaching to these dudes that are asleep. Because I remember looking around and like everybody was asleep. And this dude's preaching his guts out. I'm like, this poor guy. Now I look back and then I was like, I don't know what's going on. Get something to eat, get some clothes, go back out and steal some stuff and get high again. Because I'd become a thief at that point. That's how I was supporting my drug habit. And man, I thought Jessica thought somebody threw water on my face, because I remember feeling like cold air with the way, you know, when water's on your face. And I did that, and sure enough, I tell people, I think my body was so tired that it couldn't cry anymore. And so my soul was like, I'm so sick of this. And it's like my soul cried for me. And it was just clean, refreshing feeling. And all I remember is really breaking down why he said what he said about God loving me. And I remember him seeing two arms go underneath me and lift. I was about 110 pounds, you know, coming off of meth. Lifted me out of the seat, and I remember all these hands being laid on me and people praying. So I look back now, and they were probably like, look at this 25-year-old white kid, weighs 110. Look, he looks terrible. Okay, this is why I came out tonight. And so it started there. The journey started there. Spent a month there. Dad, Mom, and everybody started coming to the shelter to visit me. Mom wanted me to come home. Mom wanted me to come home. But Dad was like, you found the Lord here. I got to be the leader of my family. You've been stealing stuff from us. You're not coming home. I love you. We'll help you from here. And October 27, 2005, I went to court because a few days before that, my dad had called up to the homeless shelter. They got a hold of me, and he said, hey, the 201, I had some investigators calling our house. They're looking for you about something to do with some stuff you stole or whatever. And so I said, okay. So he gave me the date that they had for some misdemeanor in court. I go to court that day, which oddly enough is my wife Johanna's birthday. I find that out years later. And these dates are so weird. And I go in there thinking I'm going to squash this misdemeanor, and two detectives bust into the courtroom with a picture of a guy with a tattoo on his neck looking for me. They grab me, slam me in the wall, arrest me. I said, look, guys, I was on heroin. I'll try to remember as much as I can to help y'all in this investigation. I'm ready. And I remember when I said I'm ready, I remember that guy, because I'm in the wall, and I'm kind of looking at him, and he's looking at me, and I remember feeling him loose his grip up. He uncuffed me, put the cuffs in the front. It was like they knew this dude's done. He's done fighting. So I went and talked to them, admitted to however many, I think it was something like 15 felonies in Memphis. There was about equal amount in Mississippi waiting on me. Got out November 24th, 2009. Been out now going on, 10 years or going on 11, 10 years, something like that. I lose count. And when I got out, I went back to the church that I had grown up in after my dad left that church and went to the other one. I'm not going to name it. Everybody knows who it is. But they were really there for me when I was a kid. I was involved in the worship when I was a kid at this church. But I look like this now, and I got this story. And so I just ran in there like, a couple weeks, out of prison going, hey, man, I just got out of jail, and I want to serve Jesus. And I remember seeing him like, whoa. And I look back now going, it makes sense that he was like, we need to pray about this, And but long story short, I went to a lot of churches that were like, we ain't got room on our worship team for an ex-con, with a dope problem. In a roundabout way, they said that. But I came to Hope, and joined the choir. Effie was the choir director. Bruce was the worship leader, and those two took a chance on me and brought me in. Eli, it was just this place probably kept me from the potential of relapse. And I'm so grateful for the 10 years I've spent here, because it's been a hub for me to cultivate who I am and what the Lord's done in me, and to also, man, this is like a big house where hurting people find each other and we all heal together.
Yeah,
and so it's kind of like what this has been.
That's really good. Okay, so you've got a lot of experience. You've got a lot of life lessons. What would you share with us? Like your lessons along the way. What are some things that you've learned? What are some things that you would share with us?
Yeah, good question. A couple years ago, I think it was, the Lord kind of like landed in me. I said, Lord, I want package something up that I can deliver to these dudes that are like, bro, I'm in prison. What do you got for me? And then, of course, you tell them you were in prison, and the wall comes down, and then you can go into their heart. Same with addiction treatment centers, same with homeless shelters. And God gave me 5 things that if anybody's watching and you're taking notes or whatever.
Yeah, this is good. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to just share these 5 things for sure, because this is what I take everywhere, because this is at the end of the journey, and there's still so much more to go. That the Lord said, give this to everybody, because they don't have to be an addict or a prisoner or whatever to use this. And the first one is don't despise the days of small beginnings. And when I got out of prison, I was like, man, I ain't gonna be able to get a job. I'm a 30-year-old man living at my mom and dad's house. What am I gonna do in my life? And first place I went into, guy hired me. I was cutting hot wings and washing dishes. So we started talking. It was just a series from that point on of just passing drug tests and being joyful that the Lord was opening door after door, and steadily elevating my place occupationally in ministry with relationships. And so I didn't despise the days of small beginnings. The second thing is being okay with it being just you and God. A lot of guys and girls get out of prison or out of addiction, and they just kind of jump into a relationship because you're lonely, your emotions are all over the place because drugs have governed who you are. And so they think, they're lonely, they want somebody there. And I tell people all the time, don't get out and feel like you got to jump into some relationship. You need to be okay with you. before you go jumping in with somebody else and y'all drag each other down, because usually you see it almost 9 out of 10 times. It's 99% of the time they go back to addiction or they go back to prison if they're in a relationship too soon. So get alone with God and let him, continue to walk with you in recovery. 3 of 5 is you got to have a vision of yourself succeeding. It's not it is the here and the now, but it's also, do I got a book in me I need to write? Do I need to write an album? Am I an artist? Am I a pastor? Am I a awesome mom or dad? A vision not just of yourself, but you. What does it look like if you're succeeding? Get that picture. So have a vision. 4th is hard work. There's no replacement for hard work. And I thank you for saying what you said. When me and you talked, you really highlighted that for me. And it's easy for me to forget that. And that's the one thing, if anything aggravates me, it's people thinking I can go to their kid and wave a magic wand and fix them. Well, it happened for you, Danny. Why didn't it happen for Jimmy? It's taken me 10 years, man. 15, really, if you look at it, by the grace of God. So you got to put in the work. And the last one, wisdom nugget, would be quitting is not an option. You're going to want to quit. I've quit before on several different things, but to have that in your bones going, I ain't quitting, no matter how bad the day is, it's just not an option.
That's good. And I really, like I know you were just mentioning, but I love that you circle back on the whole hard work idea, because I think it's easy to sit here and to say, here's my journey, and now I'm singing, and I wrote a book, and it seems like you're done, right? You did it. You've done it. Now go be like Danny, right? But
go that way.
But that's hard. Like when you and I were talking, I was like, man, you put in hard work. And I love that the day in this, don't despise the day as small beginnings, day in, day out, hard work. I mean, that is really, and I think all of that is so palatable to whether or not we're in the recovery community, right? I think we need to be reminded one day at a time. I mean, especially now, right? We're collectively in this season of a pandemic, a global pandemic, so we're all navigating things differently too. But I think that there's a point where it's we can all learn from that, no matter where we are in our journey. But there are some of us who either have a loved one who is dealing with recovery, kind of you talked a little bit about this, or we personally know we either need to deal with our addiction, or we are literally in the middle of our recovery journey. This is kind of a 2-path and kind of a loaded question, but quickly, what would you say to each of those, to each person, to the person who has a loved one, to the person who's in the middle of the mess?
Yeah, that's a good question. To the person that's in the middle of the mess, if you're listening, you need community.
Yeah.
Man, it's like they did a survey on rats or something, and it was like they gave them some kind of drug and then they took it away, and then they opened up some kind of play park for the mice or something where they could gather together. So in the addiction phase, they were alone, and then to take away what they were addicted to, they gave them the option of being in community with other mice. You're not a mouse, you're not a rat. I'm just, you know what I'm saying? To be, and they had wheels and Ferris wheels and stuff for them to hang out, and then they gave them the option to be in that community with the drug that they were taking alone, and they said none of the mice went back to the inebriating drug. And so they said the overarching lesson was that this community, of being around other people and sharing joy. I mean, fun stuff. You ain't always got to be a sit-down, serious meeting talking about your war story. That's important. But being in community and eating pizza together and drinking iced tea and then go to a movie or go to the park and throw football. I mean, just to have and to really breathe in. And we talk about it and we think about it. But it's a whole other thing to do it. And when I have walked those football throws with people and we spent 45 minutes doing that, and we're kind of parched, and we go get a Mountain Dew and a slice from somewhere, it's breathing in and internalizing and letting that experience infuse in you that makes you go, I wouldn't have normally been able to enjoy this if I was high. So I would say you need community. And another thing with the person in the struggle is don't compare your journey with somebody else's, and level up on, well, how far am I? Well, I wasn't that bad, or man, I was way worse, so I guess there's no hope for me. Your journey is your journey. So don't set expectations that are unhealthy. And for people who are loved ones of somebody, and you've got somebody that's an addict or an inmate, a prisoner coming out, somebody that's just wild and running loose, I would say try to live with an open heart with them, yet set boundaries. Because you can live with that open heart. I love you, but I changed the locks on the house. Yeah. I'm sorry, I can't let you back in. We've lost 6 TVs to you, man. So you got to set those boundaries. And then also twofold to the person going, how do I help my loved one, is have a few fish to the side set for them to eat, but just let it be a couple fish. Let your goal be more so focused on teaching them to fish. And that's where the community comes in, where if the recovery community is healthy. And here at Hope Church, we got such a wonderful recovery community that has always been here. Hope's one of the only places that I know as a church that's like, use the whole west end of the church for meetings. That's amazing. You don't see that in most places. And so, to offer that and to give them that balance, and to give them an opportunity where they say, hey, I'm my goal, because if your loved one that's an addict or whatever the case may be, because it ain't always got to be drugs, it could be anything that you fill in the blank. I've got a problem with this. They need to be able to have a place where they can plug in, and so when you balance that out and you give them the opportunity to say, hey, I want to help you, but I want to help you fish. And so when you help them fish, more people come in to help you. So be encouraged. You ain't got to teach them to fish on your own. Just if they're ready, they'll drink the water. If they're not ready, man, I tell people all the time, is he ready? I know you're calling me. You're ready for him to get sober. Is he ready? Well, I'm not sure. Hey, I love you, but why don't you call me back when you talk to him and get him ready, or he's ready.
That's really, really good.
It's tough, but you do this long enough, and you have to get some thick skin.
Yeah, that's really, really good. And it's an interesting thing too, is because we don't think of encouraging families typically to seek counseling, therapy for them doing that, but that's kind of essentially what you're saying, is to find community for both wings. Essentially, is like you need your own people too to help guide you through that.
You better believe it. Yeah, I think they call it Ar-Anon, Al-Anon, whatever I forget. I'm not too plugged into that community, but people who have gone through the heaviness of man, I don't have it in me. You need to be around other people and sharing that pain. And there's so much. We need each other. God didn't make us to be alone.
Okay, so final reminders for us. What do you want to leave us with today?
Well, that's a good question. Yes, I've spent 30 minutes talking about everything else. I'm so long-winded.
No, this is great.
I really don't like to share anything that I'm not personally doing. I read this in a book, and I think it'll work for you. Let me tell you what's working for me. What's working for me right now on this end of the journey is trying to live in the moment. Try to forget the past. Let the past be a teacher. Addiction was a teacher to me. I wish I hadn't gone to that school, but I did. And it taught me. In prison, etc. But I would say now I'm trying to keep my mind out of the past, especially when it comes to regret, catching that moment, severing it off me, trying not to live into the future concerning worry. I want to be a visionary. I want to cast vision. I want to be able to see where I'm going, have a vision of yourself succeeding, but not to the point of biting your fingernails off and losing sleep at night. And literally breathing in and out and living in this moment. Because a lot of times relapse that I've seen, or people going back to their ways of life and getting arrested and going back to prison, whatever the case may be, is because they are, man, I just never be nobody. That is who I am now. Because everybody keeps bringing it up, or they're bringing it up to themselves. I can't get a job that's going to make me the money I need to make, or whatever their excuse is concerning the past. Or they've got a lot of people in their lives setting expectations on them, and the pressure of meeting that expectation stresses them out to the point of going, I give up. But if you can get a guy or a girl to kind of say, hey man, what are you thankful for right now? Let's start with your breath. Let's start with, can you see me? Yeah, okay, so your eyes are good. Okay, and then you just go from there and just begin to think about the reasons you're thankful. You can only do that in the moment. And when you're stressing about the future, regretting the past. So my advice definitely is, on that end of the fence, you got issues and problems with addiction. On this end of the fence, you got a loved one that's doing that. If you can just zero in on what's going on now with gratitude, with a healthy sense of living in the moment. Because you can just live in the moment and be all jacked up. But if you can just live in the moment in a healthy way, because of community, because of good choices, man, there's really not anything that can stand in your way of succeeding and doing great things. I mean, you're the only one that's got the fingerprints you got. So you're a unique masterpiece. God has something he wants you to do that's going to change this world. What you're doing with this Green Church thing, it's not just something you're doing. This is literally, only God knows how many people may have watched some of your interviews and said, wow, I was fixing to totally give up on this, that, and the other. And Kurt Whalum said something, Effie said something, Jessica asked a certain question. I'm going to keep going on. So we're life changers, and it's all because Jesus said, hey, man, here's your job.
Go do it.
Go do it.
Yeah, and don't give up. That's your biggest thing, right?
Yeah.
It's like, don't give up.
Yeah.
Because that's hard, like you can look at, and I love that you're highlighting, and that's essentially the be in the present, right?
Yeah.
We look at the past and we're like, I'm worthless, self-worth stuff. I can't get better than that. Or we look in the future and we say, there's too much worry, there's too much fear, there's too much, I don't know if I'm ever gonna be like that. Yeah. So being in that present, I mean, that's really that whole piece of like not giving up day in, day out, going through it.
Yeah, the editing process for my book and the mixing mastering process for my album was so aggravating. I was like, I don't want to finish this book. Me and Gary record together. I'm like, there are times where me and him, you see us at church and we're buddies, we're in the studio, we're ready to fight each other. Because it's like, I don't want to sing the word and again to get a certain tone on it like Al Green. Yeah. But you wrestle through these moments of, as what did T.D. Jakes say one time? He said, anything I've ever been successful at is a combination of all my failures.
Wow.
So welcome and embrace failure, because that's going to bring you to your next success. So good God, don't give up. Give up. Man, somebody else will write your book. Somebody else will write your song. I don't want that. I want to write the song. I want to write the book. I want to preach the sermon.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah, man.
You started preaching.
Come on.
I like it.
Quarantine fist bump.
I know. Hand sanitizer will be
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here with us in the Green Chair. This is so amazing. This is going to be a blessing to so many people I know. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And that is a wrap for our Green Chair conversation with Danny Cosby. Thank you so much for being connected with us today. Don't forget, you can share today's conversation with a friend or even post on your social media platforms. If you're interested in connecting further or getting additional resources to take this conversation beyond the chair, you can email me at greenchair@hopechurchmemphis.com. Love you guys. See you next week.